Usman from Xavier University. I know you talked a little bit about card counting and that concept. Could you elaborate a little bit more about some of the tactics the MIT students No, in Busting Vegas.
In Busting Vegas. Busting Vegas was a book I wrote where this guy, he was an MIT kid, and I didn't know. I had actually been speaking at the MIT 20th reunion, and a guy sits down next to me and says, "You don't know me, but I'm the darling of Las Vegas." And people say strange things to me all the time, but that was really strange. So I made a couple phone calls to people I knew in Vegas, and you hear of a guy called the darling of Las Vegas? And I said, yeah, there was this guy, Nicholas Novo, and he was a Russian arms dealer, and he was known as the darling of Las Vegas because he was betting so much money. This kid wasn't a Russian arms dealer, he was an MIT kid. So I started to research this. Turns out he ran a team at MIT, and what they were doing was cutting to aces. That was their main technique. And what it is you play blackjack, and hopefully a lot of you play blackjack, so you understand what I'm talking about. After the dealer rolls all the cards into a line like this. After they shuffle and roll the line like this. And they're covering the back card with this hand. If you're sitting over here, I don't know, if you're sitting over here, you can actually usually see that bottom card. Now then they hand the cut card to one of the players, right? If you saw an ace there, which happens a couple times an hour, this becomes very significant because they hand the cut card to one of the players. You cut to exactly 100 cards. Now that sounds really hard, but if any of you went home and practiced this for about 3 weeks, you could do it. Hopefully you have better things in your life going on than practice cutting a card, but anyone can do this. The dealer then moves the front of the card to the back, and now you know that the 101st card is an ace. You know this for a fact. So basically you and the whole table, and you and your friends take over the whole table, you bet low, you count down, and you count down until the ace is lined up, and then you bet $10,000. The guy next to you bets $7,000 in case you missed by one card. The person next to him bets $5,000 in case you missed by 2 cards. The ace comes up, and when an ace comes up, you have about a 67% chance of winning that match. And the problem, you win hundreds of thousands of dollars doing this. The problem is that it looks really strange because you've got a casino of people, a whole table betting the minimum, and suddenly the whole table is betting $10,000, $7,000, $5,000. Hence Nicholas Novo, the arms dealer. You come up with these personas, and you make this whole thing into like a play. He would show up, leather coat, no shirt on, 2 girls on his arms, a guy pretending to be his bodyguard, and they'd sit down, he'd speak only in Russian, and they would act like they were these crazy Russian monsters, so it didn't look weird when they suddenly threw all their money on the table. He was so good at playing this character that at one point, one of the VIP hosts at Caesar's Palace went up to him and said, "Mr. Novo, there's a party going on in the penthouse and they would like you to attend." He went up there and it was an actual Russian hand dealer, and he was like, "I know very little Russian hands, you don't need to know me." He ran out of there. But they would play characters, they would be like the suicidal dentist, they would try and find out when there was a dental convention in town, and they would all pretend they were dentists. And they would sit at a table and say, "Oh God, I hate my life, I'm so miserable," and just chuck their money on the table. They would play a German pop star. He would come in, singing in German, and you'd have a manager and a bodyguard, and he'd play all these different roles, and he did pretty well with that story. It was a